Thneedville is the capitalist setting of Illumination's The Lorax. On the surface, it looks like a perfect city that is economically thriving, but underneath, you can see the truth. You can see what not everyone sees. With this video, you will understand what is truly happening in Thneedville. But before we get to the dystopia that is Thneedville and its political ideologies, we need to recount the origin of the city known as Thneedville. As we all likely know, it starts with the Onceler. With an idea in his mind of a product called the Thneed, he left his home to go and search for a material to create it. He ended up landing in a valley filled with truffula trees, which has the main material to make the Thneed. After going to visit the town of Greenville, remember that name, to sell the Thneed, it eventually caught on. The Onceler then became an authoritarian power, despite the Lorax's opinions. As you can see here, Wilbursa is designing a town based completely around his product. Greenville, the city that the Onceler created his industry in, eventually got transformed into the dystopian Thneedville, with the Onceler becoming the mayor in the beginning. Greenville, which was once a town filled with nature and rural architecture, was turned into a corporate city that is Thneedville. We know that Greenville got morphed into Thneedville because of the structure of these buildings that are near the beginning of Thneedville's construction in the background. In this time, all of the truffula trees have been cut down. Therefore, the Thneed could not be manufactured anymore or sold. With Thneed Incorporated going under, Thneedville was left to a young Aloysius O'Hare. O'Hare had the idea to create a new business that fed off the results of the Thneed's destruction: selling air. Thneedville can be described as a negative utopia that relies heavily on capitalism. The city-state is run by Aloysius O'Hare, the founder of O'Hare Air, which is the largest company and seems to be the only company in all of Thneedville. This is confirmed in the song Thneedville with the lyric, "Everyone round here works for me." The company feeds off the citizens by making them pay for something that they need to survive, which makes the monopoly a necessity. O'Hare Air is also profiting off of its own factories because it pollutes the air, which makes the citizens want to buy more fresh air to live. Another line in the song Thneedville says that the citizens do not know where all of the waste from the corporation goes. Answer: some of it goes back into the city. One of the first examples of this is when Wesley was swimming in a pond in Thneedville, when he proceeds to start glowing a luminescent green color. It isn't even safe to swim in the water in the city. Until the end of the film, the citizens of Thneedville are oblivious to all of these problems. Even though it is said that they go to school, it must not teach them about topics similar to this. So the school system in Thneedville must be diluting them with false information. But perhaps the greatest issue in all of Thneedville is the restrictions of rights. O'Hare seems to have gotten rid of all law enforcement. As you can see, the city of Greenville did have police. But after Edna Mode got in control, he and his men were in control of the administration. This limits jobs and increases the unjust outcomes of certain people. You may say that they do not need police because the city is perfect and nobody would commit crime. Even if this is true, with all of the unsafe environments, they would need police help anyway if people got injured. It is also clear that freedom of speech is heavily repressed in Thneedville. A prime example is when O'Hare Incorporated gets rid of Taylor Swift's painting of the truffula trees, which could be described as a sign of protest. Ted was also heavily discriminated against for showing the tree to the public and receiving backlash. All of these things show the restrictions of rights in the city. We can all agree that Thneedville is heavily authoritarian and capitalist. Thneedville can be described as a corporatocracy. A corporatocracy is a society that is governed and/or controlled completely by corporations. It's pretty undeniable that Thneedville is one of these. There seems to be no form of authority except for O'Hare and his little goons. According to some signs on products, there is tax, which probably means the average citizen pays taxes to the city. That could also explain how the infrastructure, with how unstable it looks, still stays anchored. O'Hare could also be labeled as a dictator. People praise him like a god, but when he is in public with people, the citizens just seem to be afraid of going against him. Near the end of the movie, Ted's mother seemed to be frightened when he was in her home. Everything is about the O'Hare Company. There is even an O'Hare Air Museum in the middle of town near the end of the movie. All of that shows just how controlling the company is. And based on what we know about him, he probably also rigs elections. He doesn't seem like the guy that would just have a normal one. I feel like that I am the only one that realizes the true negative utopia that Thneedville is. Nobody seems to know that Greenville and its downfall even exist, and I am done without hearing of it. It could have gone deeper on how I think the Onceler is an analogy for Henry Ford and Thneedville is a metaphor for Fordlandia, but that doesn't really matter in this video. Some people believe that the Lorax is a story about a man who was consumed by corporate greed and a story about saving the planet, but I disagree. That seems like a very shallow way of thinking about the movie. Whether you believe Thneedville is a utopia or a dystopia, we can hopefully all agree that the true story of the Lorax is the fall of Greenville and the rise of a corporate city known as Thneedville.